Everyone, welcome to all 4 learning classes. This is zoology subject, third chapter, body fluids and circulation. Previously we have discussed the double circulation. Complete double circulation is what we have discussed, which includes the pulmonary circulation as well as systemic circulation. Generally, the systemic circulation is also said to be the greater circulation. Systemic circulation is also named to be the greater circulation, as it transport the blood containing the nutrients and oxygen to the distant part of the body. So it is the systemic circulation is the greater circulation. It is a greater circulation, whereas the pulmonary circulation is said to be the considered to be the lesser circulation, as it travels the short distance from right ventricle, pulmonary aortic arch into the lungs only. That's the reason why systemic circulation is a greater circulation, pulmonary circulation is the lesser circulation. Systemic circulation, which is start from left ventricle, and it is transporting the oxygenated blood from left systemic aortic arch, that is aorta, which is of ascending, arched, descending aorta, which is having different branches. These different branches, phrenic artery to the diaphragm and the renal artery to the kidney. Likewise, the different branches of the artery supply the oxygenated blood containing the nutrient and oxygen to the different parts of the long distant region. Hence, it is the greater circulation. Whereas the pulmonary aortic arch from the right ventricle originates and it runs forward, bifurcated and pump the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. So this is for a short distance and it supplies only to the lungs. Systemic circulation is supplying blood to different parts, all the parts except lungs. Pulmonary circulation from heart to the lungs and vice versa to the same, which means pulmonary circulation pumping only to the lungs and collecting from lungs into the left atrium, whereas systemic circulation pumping the blood from left ventricle to different parts of the body and collecting the blood from different parts of the body into the right atrium except the lungs. It is for the long distance traveling blood circulation. This is for short distance. It supplies to all the parts except lungs. It is only to the lungs. And it is with more pressure, it is with the less pressure. And apart from that, the circulation we have seen the coronary circulation, hepatic portal circulation, hypophyseal circulation. This is extra points we learn other than the textbook, which is very, very important, and definitely it is a part of the syllabus, as we come to know that the hypophyseal circulation you found to be different from the textbook. The due reason is this is a part of our syllabus. Generally, the pituitary gland, which is said to be the hypophysis, it is the master gland. However, it is the master gland, but the hormonal secretion from the hypophysis is also regulated by the hypothalamus. That is, from hypothalamus, the hormones secreted are, hypothalamus have a neurosecretory cells or nucleus, it is said to be, and these are what supplying the circulation to the hypophysis, which start with the capillaries and supplies the blood to the anterior part of pituitary, anterior part of the pituitary, that is adenohypophysis. by means of hypophyseal blood vessels. Such hypophyseal blood vessels, so it is named to be the hypophyseal circulation. That is, in the nucleus or neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus, the two hormones, growth hormone, releasing hormone, which is also named to be the somatokinin, and growth hormone and growth hormone inhibitory hormone, which is named to be the somatostatin. Somatokinin, growth hormone releasing hormone, or somatokinin, growth hormone inhibitory hormone, the somatostatin. These are the two hormones in fact synthesized in the hypothalamus. Besides that, we do also see the ADH, antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin, and oxytocin are in fact synthesized in the hypothalamus. Whereas the ADH and or vasopressin and oxytocin reach to the neurohypophysis. That is the different part. But here, hypophyseal circulation refers to the hormones that are synthesized in the hypothalamus through hypophyseal blood vessel brought into the anterior part of the pituitary, which is named to be the hypophyseal circulation. The second one, coronary circulation. Coronary refer to the heart. That is, there are two coronary arteries which originate from the dorsal aorta and supplies the oxygenated blood to the wall of the heart. In the same manner, from the wall of the heart, the coronary veins, which are four in number, four coronary veins collect the deoxygenated blood from the wall of the heart and pump back into the heart right atrium, and this all the four coronary veins join together forming the coronary sinuses, and whose opening into the right atrium is guarded by means of valve of Thebatius. So this is from heart to its wall, and from wall to its that is into the heart. That is coronary circulation, right? So that is number of the coronary arteries are 2, number of coronary veins are 4. And the point to remember, the number of the pulmonary veins, you may be expected questions in this regard. The number of coronary arteries 2, number of coronary veins 4, number of pulmonary veins are also 4. And the hepatic portal circulation is the third one. Hepato, generally the nutrients from the gut are transported through the blood, not directly to the heart, but via the liver, where the hepatic portal vein, the portal vein is a vein which starts with the blood capillary in one organ and ends with the blood capillary in another organ. Hepatic portal vein start with the blood capillaries in the gut. As I already told you that the nutrients, glucose, amino acids are being taken to the liver, where the excess of glucose is converted to form glycogen. Next, the nitrogenous waste that are nothing but deamination results in ammonia, which is undergo the ornithine cycle in the liver and forms the urea. How does all this happen? That is by means of hepatic portal circulation itself. There are the veins which start in the different parts of the gut. That is anterior mesenteric vein, posterior mesenteric vein, cystic vein, spleen vein. Likewise, all these veins which start in the alimentary canal by means of capillary, and this what form the hepatic portal vein, and that ends in the liver by means of the blood capillary. That's what it starts with the blood capillary in the gut and ends with the blood capillary in the liver. That's what hepatic portal vein. So this is what are the 3 types of the circulations: hypophyseal, hepatic portal circulation, and coronary circulation. All the vertebrates are with the hepatic portal circulation. Whereas one more circulation, name it to be the one more the system, portal system, hepatic portal system and renal portal system, both are present among the vertebrates, but renal portal system absent in the case of the mammals and cyclostomes. This is the description we have done. Now let's move on to the regulation activity, and one more point to remember, that the heart exhibit the autorhythmic action. The sinoatriolar node, which is the pacemaker, without it can generate action potential without external stimulus. That is, at time of 0.6 seconds, it can generate action potential, which is being transmitted to the walls of the atria, so atriolar systole takes place. Atria and ventricle do not contract simultaneously, as the musculature of the atria and ventricle are discontinuous. This action potential from SCA node, SAN to ABN, ABN to bundle of His into the Purkinje fibers to the walls of the ventricle, then ventricles contract. So this contraction and relaxation of the heart is by its own generating action potential without external stimulus. That's what it is, autorhythmicity. That is SAN, that is pacemaker, whereas AVN is the pace setter. That's the detail we have seen. Now let's see, however, the heart cardiac muscle, the heart special or specific muscle cells, name it to be the cardiomyocytes, which can generate the action potential. However, it generates its action potential for heartbeat or mechanism of the heart. It is also regulated by means of the neural and chemical control, which means there is a regulation activity. There is a regulation activity. We have seen in the case of the digestive system how the digestion is being controlled by neural control and hormonal control. The same way, respiratory activity is also regulated. Now the point is the regulation activity of the heart. How the activity of the heart is regulated? The regulation activity of the heart, which is also involving both the neural activity and the chemical activity. Both the neural activity and the chemical activity is what we are about to discuss. Neural activity and the chemical activity. Neural activity in the sense of the neural signals what control the heartbeat. We have discussed that there are two types of the heart. Human heart is a myogenic and it is autorhythmic. It generates action potential on its own without the external stimuli. However, it is initiating the action potential, but the activities are regulated by neurons. Sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is they are the two components of the autonomic nervous system, which is a part of the nervous system. Nervous system is of central nervous system and autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system, which includes the two components, name it to be the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic nervous system increases the heartbeat, parasympathetic nervous system decreases the heartbeat. This is how the neural activity controls the heartbeat or activity of the heart. In the same manner, chemical activity in the sense it is by means of the hormones. Hormones called epinephrine and norepinephrine, adrenaline or noradrenaline. Even not only this, but also by means of thyroxine is a hormone what regulates the activity of the heart. How this story continues, now we'll see. Neural activity, the activity by means of the neurons. Generally, the neural activity under which we discuss the autonomic nervous system. autonomic nervous system is with the two components, named to be the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic. Sympathetic and parasympathetic. These are the two components of the autonomic nervous system. Generally, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which includes which are component of the autonomic, which is said to be the accelerator and brake system. Recall your memory. We discussed that in the case of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, also regulate the gastrointestinal tract movement, blood pressure. And here also the same thing we see. Sympathetic nervous system increases the heartbeat, whereas parasympathetic nervous system decreases the heartbeat, So in this connection, what do we learn? How this increasing and decreasing the heartbeat takes place. The sympathetic neurons give the neural signals to the blood vessel, which causes the vasoconstriction. I repeat, sympathetic neurons, what causes the vasoconstriction of the arteries. Vasoconstriction, in the sense, you are familiar with this. Constriction means narrowing. Narrowing of the blood vessel naturally causes the increasing blood pressure. So this is how the sympathetic neurons, what increases the heartbeat by vasoconstriction of the arteries. In the same manner, parasympathetic neurons, which causes the vasodilation of the arteries. This vasodilation of the arteries, dilation means relaxing, which means it regain its original position. Earlier it was the narrowed, now it is come to its original position. When it is dilated, the volume increases, pressure decreases. This is how parasympathetic nervous system, including the parasympathetic neuron, dilate the blood vessels called arteries and decreases the blood pressure. This is how the heartbeat is being regulated by the neural signals, that is nothing but the neural activity by means of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. One more point need to be discussed in this connection, where the baroreceptors are to be discussed. Baroreceptors are to be discussed. Baroreceptors, in the sense, the pressure receptors, they are also said to be the pressure receptors. Let me clear you regarding this. Generally, the blood vessels are with the receptors, name it to be the baroreceptors. They detect the pressure in the blood vessels. Recall your memory. Chemosensitive area, they are with the receptors, which detect the CO2 and H plus ion concentration. In the case of the carotid bodies and aortic bodies, we have seen the same thing is repeated here. The baroreceptors, in the sense, the pressure receptors. The receptors of the nerve endings, what name it to be the baroreceptors. The nerve endings where the receptors present, name it to be the baroreceptors. These baroreceptors are present in the carotid artery as well as in the case of the aortic arches. I repeat, the baroreceptors are the receptors of the nerve endings named to be the baroreceptors. They are capable of detecting the changes in the pressure in the blood vessels. One that is present in the carotid artery, one that is present in the aortic arches. The neural regulation, sympathetic and parasympathetic, how it is regulating the cardiac activity we have discussed. There we see it is also by means of the receptors, one directly by vasodilation and vasoconstriction, and one more is also present, that is the pressure receptors are present, baroreceptors. These baroreceptors are none other than the receptors that detect the pressure. These baroreceptors are of two types. One is named to be the carotid baroreceptor and another is the aortic baroreceptors. The one that are present in the aortic arch are named to be the aortic baroreceptors, and the one that are present in the carotid artery are carotid baroreceptors. Now the question is, what do you mean by this aortic arch and carotid artery? An aortic arch is nothing but the left systemic aortic arch, which is ascending arch and descending is what we have seen, and it is the largest blood vessel, aorta. So that carotid or that aortic arch have the receptors named to be the aortic baroreceptors, which means these are the nerve endings. Look at here, these are one present at the end of the vagus nerve and one that is present at the herring nerve, and which is connecting the glossopharyngeal nerve. So I repeat, this is the description related to the cardiac activity done by means of receptors. The receptors that detect the blood pressure are named to be the baroreceptors or pressure receptor. They are of two kinds, one that is present in the aortic arch and one that is in the carotid artery. Recall your memory, just now we have seen the blood pressure, that is the cardiac activity where the arteries blood vessels are decreased, that is constriction and dilation. How does it takes place? This is nothing but detection by nerve endings. At the nerve endings, what do you mean by nerve ending? The end of a nerve. So at the end of a vagus nerve ending, in the aortic arch, aortic baroreceptors are present, whereas the glossopharyngeal nerve, where the carotid baroreceptors are present, which detect the pressure in the blood vessels, which nothing but activity of the heartbeat also increases or decreases, which is to be detected by means of the receptors, that is nothing but the baroreceptors. The carotid baroreceptor is present at the junction of the bifurcation of the carotid artery. Recall your memory, we discussed that the blood is pumped to and different parts by means of an artery, which are the branches of the aortic arch. So the blood vessel that is pumping the blood to the brain and parts of the head is none other than the carotid artery, external carotid artery, internal carotid artery. Remind you one thing, remember and recall your the memory. We discussed that the internal carotid artery supplying blood to the parts of the brain, external carotid artery pumping the blood to the jaws, lips, tongue and the salivary glands. What topic, where do we discuss this? Recall your memory, from the same part, the jugular vein collect the blood, internal jugular and external jugular, and this at the junction of the subclavian vein, where the thoracic duct or left and right lymphatic duct open, right? So in this connection, the carotid artery, which is bifurcated into right and left, at this junction there are present the carotid baroreceptors, which detect the pressure and that is being signaled to the glossopharyngeal nerve, where they represent a nerve, name it to be the herring nerve. So they are the nerve endings. So the carotid baroreceptor, which detect the pressure in the carotid artery, is transmitted signaled to the herring nerve. Herring nerve will give the signal to the glossopharyngeal. This is how these are what are the sensory in action. This glossopharyngeal take the impulse signal to the medulla oblongata. In the medulla oblongata, they are present tract salutaris. Once this feedback is taken, once this signal is taken to the medulla oblongata, remind you one thing. Medulla oblongata is the part of the brain which is very, very essential. Medulla oblongata, where respiratory rhythmic center is present, which regulates the respiratory rate, and it is also regulating the gastric movement, and now it is also regulating the blood pressure. So this is what the very, very important point. So the carotid baroreceptors, which are present at the nerve ending, one that is at the carotid artery, received by herring nerve, then glossopharyngeal, it is being sent into the medulla oblongata, where the tractus salutaris is present. It is the receiving part of the blood pressure in the form of the nerve signal. Then such feedback is given to the blood vessels, whether it is a dilation or constriction. This is how the chemical activity. One more is also present, the aortic baroreceptors present in the aortic arch. At what nerve ending they are present? That is nothing but the vagus nerve. This vagus nerve take the signal again to the tractus salutaris, which is present in the medulla oblongata, and then the necessary signals are given. This is how the heartbeat is regulated by neural activity. Directly the neurons called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic neurons. Sympathetic neuron constrict the arteries, thereby increases the blood pressure, whereas the parasympathetic vasodilation thereby decreases the heartbeat. Then the receptors, baroreceptors also, they are present at the nerve ending, give the signal to the medulla oblongata, which as a feedback mechanism give the signal to the blood vessels and decreases the blood pressure. This is how the neural activity of the heart activities are regulated and controlled. This is the neural activity. The second one is named to be the chemical activity. The chemical, in the sense, basically the hormones are said to be, hormones are chemical messengers, and these are what also regulate the heartbeat. In what way? Generally, the hormones named to be epinephrine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, or the adrenaline, and the norepinephrine, and it is also said to be the noradrenaline, are the two hormones released from the medullary region of the adrenal gland. So you may be confused, and now you are clear. Adrenal gland, glands are adrenal gland, which is named to be the suprarenal gland. It is the gland which is with the, as it is associated with the kidney, as the kidney is with the both the cortex and the medullary region, so this is also with the cortex and the medullary region. Here the cortex region releases the hormones which are named to be the corticoid hormones. That is not of the point of importance here, but medullary region what releases the two types of the hormone, which is the part of the reason we need to discuss, the point of the explanation we need. Medulla part releases the two types of the hormones, which is the epinephrine, also name it to be the adrenaline, and norepinephrine or noradrenaline. These are the two hormones said to be the flight, fight, and fright. What do you mean by this? This is all what are the emergency. When you are in a panic, is that your heartbeat increases? Definitely. Which means when you are in a panic, when you are fear, these are the conditions named to be the emergency conditions where this hormone is released. That's what they are named to be the flight, fight, fight. Either you are ready to fight or you are escaping. This is all related to your emergency conditions. That is what flight, fight, fright. This is because of epinephrine, norepinephrine. They increase the heartbeat. So this is how we see the chemical activity also. It is being regulated. One more hormone also we came across, name it to be the thyroxine. Thyroxine is also increases the heartbeat. So this is how we come to know, one by the neural activity, another is by chemical activity. Neural activity by sympathetic neuron, which increases the heartbeat by vasoconstriction, and parasympathetic decreases the heartbeat. Then the baroreceptors are pressure receptors. These are carotid baroreceptors and aortic baroreceptors. Carotid baroreceptors are abundantly present in the wall of the carotid artery. A carotid artery is bifurcated into external and internal. At that junction, there present the receptors which connected to the herring nerve. Herring nerve give the signal to glossopharyngeal that give to the medulla oblongata where tractus salutaris is present. Such signaling from the receptors what send back into the blood vessel. One more is also the aortic baroreceptors through vagus nerve reach the same part of the medulla oblongata, and this regulates the activity of the heart. And another is by epinephrine, norepinephrine, and thyroxine. So this is the description, summary of how the heart activity is controlled and coordinated. Thank you.